But Jannah is extremely vast. In fact, for one type of believer, he or she may have 100 levels of Jannah just for themselves. And so Jannah is something that is very, very large in size. And the Prophet said, your son has attained the highest al-Firdaus al-A'la. The highest part of Jannah is called al-Firdaus al-A'la, which is often translated as paradise. Jannah is so big, when we think about these 7 skies or 7 heavens that people think about, associate them with the levels of Jannah, what that really is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about in the Quran, as-samawat as-sab'a. There's these 7 skies, these 7 layers of the universe that we don't know anything about. And oftentimes in English, those are translated as heavens. When they say the word heaven in English, they don't mean Jannah, as in paradise. They just mean a layer of sky that's above us. And it contains celestial bodies and other things that stars and planets and whatever might else be in there. And so this entire universe that we live in right now, there is another sky above us, the second sky. And this entire universe, everything that we know, this ever-expanding universe, compared to the sky that's above us, is like the size of a ring in a desert. If you take a ring and you throw it in the desert, that ring has no value compared to the desert. It disappears. It's like a speck in that desert. This entire universe, compared to the sky above us, is like that little ring in a desert. And there's another layer of sky above that. And the second sky compared to the third one is like the size of a ring in a desert. And it keeps going until you get to the 7th sky, which again, these are just layers of the universe. And at the very 7th, the highest one, the largest one, this is where you can start seeing the trees, the roots of the trees of Jannah. And Jannah is above that. Jannah is above these 7 layers of the universe, these as-samawat as-sab'a. And after that, Jannah begins. And in fact, Jannah has so many levels that a person on the Day of Judgment will be told to recite in the famous hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Iqra wartaqi," recite and rise. And the last place, the height of your position in Jannah will be the last ayah that you recite. And the scholars also take from this hadith that the more you memorize of Quran in this dunya, the higher your position in Jannah will be. And in fact, the closer your pronunciation is to that of the Prophet ﷺ in terms of the tajweed and articulation, the faster you rise on the Day of Judgment as well. And so how many levels are there in Jannah? Some scholars say maybe as much as there are ayat in the Quran based on this hadith. So really nobody knows. This is a matter of the hereafter. But Jannah is more than this confined 7 levels that sometimes we think about. And in fact, Jannah is so large that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He created heaven and when He created the hellfire, may Allah protect us from that, He created enough space for every human being and every jinn that has ever lived from the beginning of time until the end of time. There is enough space for all of us in Jannah. And when I say space, it doesn't mean like you have space to stand in Jannah. Space in Jannah, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, that for a single person, when he or she looks out into Jannah, Allah says, وَإِذَا رَأَيْتَ ثَمَّ رَأَيْتَ نَعِيمًا وَمُلْكًا كَبِيرًا. When a person looks as far as the eye can see in Jannah, everything that they're looking at is their property in Jannah. So when you're in Jannah, the amount of space that a person has includes palaces, mansions, includes this vast area where literally as far as your eye can see, that's a part of your property in Jannah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions specifically the word kingdom over here. And the scholars mention that this necessitates that every human being, every person who enters Jannah by the mercy of Allah is their own king or queen in their property in Jannah. That means you have a mansion, that means you have servants, that means you have fruit and food and all the descriptions of Jannah that we know about. And so although the word Jannah means a garden, it includes all these other areas as well. Just like when we say the word dunya, we say the word world, it includes city life, rural life, it includes physical sensations, emotional happiness. Jannah is the same way. There's all these other aspects of Jannah that if we just knew about, we would be very motivated to getting there. And so Jannah has a marketplace, for example. The Prophet ﷺ said that on Fridays, people can go to the souk of Jannah, a marketplace, because it's not to get anything that you need, because you can have everything that you need. But in this marketplace, people gather, they socialize, like a kind of a square, like a marketplace, and you get to hang out with other people from different levels of Jannah as well. And you get to see and have the social element. And there's a fun that happens in attaining things and shopping and getting things. There's a breeze that travels through the roads of Jannah on Fridays, and anybody who hits that breeze, they become more beautiful. And then when they return to their family says, you return more beautiful to us than when you left. Jannah has tents and pavilions and all these other aspects that we're going to learn about, inshallah. Jannah is something that all of us want to return to. In this life, we have a body and we have a soul. And there's a friction between those two. The body is made of flesh, and it has desires, and it's attached to this dunya. And it dominates our soul sometimes in this dunya. Our soul is the real person who we actually are. When we live in this world, the body dominates the soul. And it's hard to please the soul. It's easy to please the body. It's easy to give into our actions, our desires, the things that we immediately want to be gratified with. But the soul is much harder to please. The only satisfaction that the soul can have in this life is their connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ibn Taymiyyah said, Jannati fi sadri. My Jannah in this world is in my heart because of the connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But you know you're going to live another life as well. And that life is much longer than this life. The time that you spend underground is much more than the time that you're going to spend above ground. This is a fact for every single one of us. We all have an expiration date. We don't know how long we're going to be in this dunya, but yes, we're going to be in the grave. Well, what kind of life am I going to have in the grave? What kind of life are you going to have in the grave? Think about our ancestors who have been in the grave for hundreds and thousands of years. What are they doing in the grave? Are they in the internet? Are they on their phones? No. What they're doing is that there is a reward and a punishment in the grave as well. That's another life that all of us are going to live. And we need to invest our time to make sure that we have a comfortable grave. That we have, as the Prophet described, for the people of Jannah, they have a window of Jannah where they can feel the breeze of Jannah. They can see Jannah. Your body has no weight in the grave. It is your soul that receives the reward and the punishment. Allah protect us from that in the grave. So imagine somebody who's in the grave for hundreds and thousands of years, looking at their property in Jannah, wishing that every day the day of judgment begins. That's where we're going to spend the bulk of our lifetime in this world, is going to be in that grave. And so the more we're motivated towards investing our actions, investing our deeds, towards earning the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be people of Jannah, the more relaxing that place will be. And at the very end, the hereafter, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala combines the balance of body and soul. So in this life, body dominates the soul. In the grave, the soul dominates the body, but in the hereafter, there's a perfect balance between the two, so that the people of Jannah can experience both body and soul satisfaction in its perfection. And that's one of the things that makes Jannah true Jannah. This life is not Jannah, right? We'll never be completely satisfied or happy. It's impossible. But in Jannah, there is no such thing that a person could want something, but they cannot have it, because that would make Jannah deficient. And so in Jannah, we're going to have new bodies. They're going to be perfect. They're never going to get sick. They're never going to get tired. They're never going to get old. We're going to have any desire or want that a person could have in Jannah, they can act upon it, because that's a part of Jannah. It's a kingdom unlike any other. Because even in this world, if you own something or you have some property or you go somewhere on vacation, there's things that you might want to do that's not part of your package. You don't have authority to do that. You don't have money to do that. But in Jannah, that doesn't exist. In Jannah, if a person wants something, they will immediately be able to fulfill that action. And in fact, even things that we might not have thought about. So once one of the companions, he came to the Prophet ﷺ, and he heard all these descriptions of Jannah, but he didn't hear about this one thing that he really enjoyed doing in this dunya. He was an Ansari, and he liked to farm. And he asked the Prophet ﷺ, will I be able to farm in Jannah? And because he never heard about that you can farm in Jannah. But he legitimately enjoys doing that, and he wishes he could be able to do something like that in Jannah. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he said that yes, you will be able to farm in Jannah. And the scholars mentioned from this hadith and others that people have their own preferences in Jannah. You have your own hobby. Maybe you like working on cars. Maybe you like learning languages. Maybe you like rock climbing. Whatever you might like. وَلَكُمْ فِيهَا مَا تَشْتَهِي أَنفُسُكُمْ. You'll have whatever your heart desires. وَلَكُمْ فِيهَا مَا تَدَّعُونَ. And you'll have anything else that you can think of. Anything else that you can ask for, you'll have that. Before people enter Jannah, they are purified on this bridge. There's a bridge that all of us are going to stand on the day of judgment. In fact, there's two bridges. One is the famous one that all of us know, the Sirat. Every single one of us, every human being is going to cross through that bridge. And anybody who doesn't make it past that bridge, as I say, anybody who makes it past that bridge is a person of Jannah. But that's a moment where we're going to be standing on this bridge before we cross it, and we're going to be wishing that we did more in this dunya to make sure that we cross that bridge in an easy way. Because the Prophet ﷺ, he said, some people are going to cross that bridge like lightning. Immediately they're going to cross it, based on their deeds and the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Others are going to cross it like a swift wave. Others like people on horses. But the very last group of people who cross this bridge, anybody who falls from the bridge, that is going into the hellfire. It's above the hellfire. But anybody, the last group of people crossing it, they're going to be crawling across this sirat, which is thinner than a hair and sharper than the edge of a knife or a sword. And they're going to be crawling, and they're not going to know if they're going to make it. They're going to feel like they're falling every second. It's going to feel like torture to them until they finally get to the end of this bridge, and then they know that they're a person of Jannah. And then all the people that are destined to go to Jannah, the Prophet ﷺ, he said that they go on this other bridge called the Qantara, which is another bridge where everybody who has an issue with someone else, they settle that before they go into Jannah. So that Jannah becomes Darus Salam. Jannah is a place of peace and satisfaction. Jannah is a place where anybody who has a desire that's contradictory to the nature of Jannah, like if somebody enjoys like the pain of other people or something like that, they'll be completely purified from that pain, from that perspective. And so Jannah has so many great descriptions, and I hope that we can feel motivated to learn more about it. Because the more we're attached to something, we think about it, we know its descriptions, just like we can describe like movies or celebrities or video games, whatever it may be, we should be able to describe Jannah. We should be able to understand what's the highest part of Jannah. The Prophet ﷺ said that there's a place at Jannah, the very, very top of Jannah called Al-Wasila, which is for the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ talked about who's the lowest person in Jannah, the last person to enter Jannah. What does that person have? And so there's so much that if we start thinking about it, we'll be motivated towards action. We'll want to go to Jannah. Just like we have goals for having a nice house or a certain car or whatever it may be, the more we think about it, we get infatuated with it. And we want to work towards that. We find opportunities to attain that, to achieve that by the mercy of Allah. Similarly, Jannah has to be both in the back of our mind and at the front of our heart. It has to be something that we're constantly thinking about because we want to go to Jannah. We know we're going to spend time in the grave. We live in a society that largely doesn't believe in the hereafter. And so it's easy for us to forget what our purpose in life is and what direction we're going in. May Allah make us from the highest people of Jannah, Al-Firdaus al-A'la, us and our families, and save us from the hellfire. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين من كل ذنب فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. ربنا آمنا فاكتبنا مع الشاهدين. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. عباد الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. وأوفوا بعهد الله إذا عاهدتم ولا تنقضوا الأيمان بعد توكيدها فاجعلوا الله عليكم كفيلا إن الله يعلم ما تفعلون. أقيموا الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. سبح اسم ربك الأعلى الذي خلق فسوى والذي قدر فهدى والذي أخرج المرعى فجعله غثاء أحوى سنقرئك فلا تنسى إلا ما شاء الله إنه يعلم الجهر وما يخفى ونيسرك لليسرى فذكر إن نفعت الذكرى سيذكر من يخشى ويتجنبها الأشقى الذي يصلى النار الكبرى ثم لا يموت فيها ولا يحيا قد أفلح من تزكى وذكر اسم ربه فصلى بل تؤثرون الحياة الدنيا والآخرة خير وأبقى إن هذا لفي الصحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Attempting to move the different back inside to get to the normal. Testing those kicks for testing out, the consciousness of the previous preparation. We're going to
forward, throughout the summer, increase our goals inside. We'll keep everyone updated on the move. And just be cognizant of outside, especially leaving left hand directions. Just be careful leaving the front home, tomorrow here at the Dickman Center from 2 to 5 p.m. In collaboration with leave, we'll get the second dose of the vaccine as well as the first dose of the vaccine. The Pfizer vaccine will be available here. There is focus to everyone in the month. The hours will be 2 to 5 minutes open walking and open as required for those who are receiving the monthly vaccination. We finish by an hour and a half.
How is you? Hey, listen.
Yes, yes. Okay, good. I know that. I'm sorry. Let's shoot for like maybe and I'll be honest, like the last weekend. Inshallah, I think just text me.